Hello and welcome to Dav Chat. Make politics interesting. Today's edition, we're going to talk about a couple of things. Elon Musk and his kind of fascist oligarchical tendency to tantrum if he doesn't get his own way, to lean into not only anti-Semitic conspiracies, but just anti-democracy conspiracies. Because if y'all remember Pizzagate, that was a conspiracy that Hillary Clinton shouldn't be president of the United States because she was part of an illicit ring of sex traffickers who were operating out of a basement in a pizza restaurant that doesn't have a basement. And a man eventually went to that restaurant armed with a weapon and fired a gun, demanding to see a basement that didn't exist. All sort of illustrative of how conspiracy theories and gullibility are cultural facets that get preyed upon by exploitative elements of our society who want to accrue power, who want to win at all costs, and will use the gullibility of certain groups of people who like to believe secrets and have access to secret information about hidden things in order to feel powerful and strong, even in a context where in their personal lives and maybe their political lives, they feel less than special. So fascism works by making people feel special, feel gleeful and empowered even at the thought that they are somehow collectively as a group overturning expectations, owning liberals, owning people who are too kind or too nice or too tolerant, and being strong. And that's why throughout history you have various strongman figures such as Benito Mussolini in Italy, Adolf Hitler in Germany, Vladimir Putin in Russia, claim to be these strong, empowered, hypermasculine figures who can live the dream for the little men. And they will often lower political standards in ways that are novel in order to enhance their everyman appeal. They might swear, they might, as Donald Trump famously does, misspell things and leave them purposefully uncorrected. I mean, Trump has purposely now left the word stolen with a double L in it as he references his big lie claims about the 2020 election. And what's the point of that? When you have everyman appeal, you can sometimes ride a faux populism wave to power and from your powerful position, sabotage the pillars of democracy behind you as fast as you can. Trump wasn't able to sabotage them fast enough to gain a consecutive second term in office and install himself as a permanent dictator to whom elections would in the future merely be stage managed affairs. But he did create a powerful following, the type of people who will double down on their mistakes rather than admit wrongdoing, which is a tendency very common amongst human beings, doubling down on errors rather than admit mistakes. So at least we've had the example of a lot of Trump acolytes serving time or being awarded with prison sentences for their blind obedience to Trump and their wholehearted embrace of violence in furtherance of his agenda of installing himself as an unelected dictator, bypassing the process of democratic elections when he sought to overturn Joe Biden's 2020 victory in not only the popular vote, but more importantly, in the electoral college system vote. Biden won that. Trump tried legal methods to overturn Biden's victory, hoping that he had stacked the court with enough judges, that he'd put enough judges on the Supreme Court that people would lean into the aura of the implication of unrivaled fascistic power. But enough Americans in power, even ones friendly to Trump, decided to preserve their personal reputations and continue a propriety rather than overturn the election results in Trump's favor. So even the Supreme Court, which he thought was sufficiently stacked with 3 Trump appointees to rule in his favor and say, yes, you know what, Joe Biden's victory is too suspicious. Trump has pointed out it's suspicious, so we'll just go with that impressionistic concept and just allow him to have his way here. They did not. They said, we won't even hear these cases. There is inadequate evidence. There is no substantiation to suggest that there was any significant fraud in Biden's favor. Bob says his brother that lives in Virginia got a fly in his mailbox and he's going to send me a picture of it. He'll be right back so he can send me the picture. Okay. I might get this picture come through on Twitter. I am now able to broadcast to Twitter, which is very exciting. It's a new thread. I use StreamYard to stream these broadcasts. If you've seen my work before, you'll know I used to stream frequently up to and through the 2020 election and all of the drama of the attempted coup, Trump's insurrection plot, unsuccessful insurrection plot, but insurrection plot nevertheless. He has a lot of elements that would enable him potentially to use America's democracy to gain a legitimate victory through the Electoral College system in 2024, which is a matter of significant concern. We're all hoping the legal system will be able to function in time to have him be jailed or at least convicted in a way that would wake up enough independent voters to forestall Trump using democracy to get a second term and then following through with his other promises of enacting revenge on people who've been critical of him from his own administration, people who've been critical of him outside of his administration, and anybody who he sees as an enemy. He's described his enemies as communists, Marxists, vermin who need to be driven out of America. So with the implication he would jail or deport people who are opposed to his rule in any way. Okay, so Bob, you're saying you've sent me a picture. I can see it now. It says, oh, Jewish terrorism against British troops in Palestine, the Loyal White Knights. Sounds like a subset of the Ku Klux Klan. Truth triumphs over lies. These flyers were distributed randomly without malicious intent. Pray for white Americans. Read U.S. Constitution Amendment 1. Read SCOTUS decision Haag versus CIO 1939. Whites have rights too. There is a concern. People worry about the pendulum swinging away from the status quo. People worry about losing dominance if they felt like they had dominance. People who've previously felt like they were part of a majority are quite often unwilling or have concerns and reservations about relinquishing that dominance. So, yeah, that sounds like there's a Ku Klux Klan element out there called the White Knights, whatever, trying to foment basically distributing flyers that are a precursor to violence against Jews in the United States, and are certainly trying to encourage buy-in to conspiracy theories that people have to vote against a multi-plural democracy, a democracy in which Americans of different religious backgrounds can all coexist, and that we can respect democracy because we can trust that we have sufficient partners within a multi-plural democracy to uphold a democracy that still ultimately operates in everybody's interests to a broad degree. So yes, the flyer said without malicious intent. There clearly was a malicious intent. Bad faith actors or people who are riding on a delusional wave of righteousness, they'll frequently describe themselves as having the best of intentions. Whites have rights, and they've been so victimized across history. They magnify risks because they are just responding to an emotional perception they have, an emotional perception of loss. They're trying to mitigate that loss by creating group solidarity amongst white people, whereas white people are having a moment in history where there's space for us to be less defensive, to engage with accurate history, even if that's not what we were taught in school and learn more about the kind of massacres, the violent backlash that has occurred against build-ups of Black communities and Black successful businesses, and the backlash to any development in American history that has disproven some of its foundational organizing principles and some of it's around wealth, because America's politics, the US's politics, have been founded on some strong ideals, but it hasn't always lived up to those ideals, and that's because a lot of wealth has often been generated by dividing people according to skin color and then oppressing and exploiting and enslaving people of Black skin color. And so a carapace of rationalization and justification, including religious rationalization, rose around that practice of exploitative wealth generation, so that you have churches who were like, yes, white people, it's a special, pure, innocent, wonderful skin color to have. That is God's endorsement of this practice of extracting wealth from the suffering of others and denying the humanity of others and denying the potential goodness and family structure of other people, and denying them the ability to have intact families, and making it illegal to get an education, to learn to read or write. All these various things that people under the protection of societal endorsement of whiteness were able to do to other people, and not just directly exploit slaves, but economically benefit in general from industries that were adjacent to the practice of slavery, and therefore generated huge amounts of wealth and consequently extreme geopolitical power for the United States. And that was the first engine of American growth and success. But the second engine has had a better moral foundation to it, because the second engine of American excellence not excellence, but American power and attractiveness to people, to the best of migrants from other nations, has been American embrace of migrants and the American ideals of saying, yes, we welcome people who want to come and try their luck here, who want to give it their best shot. And that ability to deal fairly, or at least relatively fairly, with people moving to the United States to give life their best shot, to leave behind the comforts of the known in exchange for the promise of a potential unknown, paid off for America. America has had more innovation, more business enterprises started, more ingenuity, more energy, and more color and diversity, and higher standards, because of the good example of the type of people with the bravery and the initiative to leave their home and try their luck here. So America has benefited from the social good that accompanies migration and accepting migration into a multi-plural society. The United States has benefited from having a structure from the better parts of the Constitution that lay out, we will work within these rules. Bob is noting in relation to the flyer that a group of about 3 people or less, brothers in Virginia, are nothing like this flyer. He actually told me he knows no Trumpers. He knows Republicans, but they are all anti-Trump and his cult ideas. Well, that's great. I read an op-ed in the Washington Post today that said we have to be more clear-eyed about the potential dangers that we will succumb to a second Trump term, which will be an immersion in despotism, because if the rule of law is unsuccessful, if the courts are unsuccessful in holding him to account for his various publicly confessed to crimes, then he will be less constrained. He will have staff that's been handpicked by the Heritage Foundation, lawyers who are vetted to disregard the rule of law in favor of racking up wins for Donald Trump and consequently the coattails of conservatism. So Leonard Leo is one of those people who have worked for a conservative agenda of bringing religious Christian fundamentalism to rule over Americans en masse. He's helped stack the Supreme Court. He's helped run campaigns, attract millions of dollars of donor money and cultivate the friendship of billionaires such as Harlan Crow. Harlan Crow, Leonard Leo, kingmaker of the Supreme Court and consequently of the American political landscape. They've been subpoenaed today by the Senate Judiciary Committee, comprised of a majority of Democrats, and Republicans were so mad about it, they walked out, which is why I have this little thing on screen here that says, Heather Thomas says, find someone who will histrionically tantrum for you the way GOP senators histrionically tantrum for Leonard Leo and Harlan Crow. Because, yeah, they walked out. And we can go to my bookmarks. And I'll also promise to read out loud the Washington Post op-ed art of Trump. I don't know, it was a very down article, so when I read it, I'll attempt to introduce some levity. All right. So this is levity because this is Elon Musk being interviewed yesterday by Andrew Ross Sorkin. And he says, Jonathan, the only reason I'm here is because you are a friend. And Andrew Ross Sorkin replies saying, I'm Andrew. It's just comic. I need a laugh sometimes. In between coping with Musk acquiring the platform of Twitter, which I like to use frequently and have used to educate myself from a variety of sources, but Musk, who refuses to say he endorses Trump, but who openly said he wouldn't vote for Joe Biden, therefore endorsing Trump by default, and saying that the biggest problem is the suppression of free speech because he's had so many powerful companies try to protect their own brands by withdrawing their advertising dollars from the platform that Musk acquired for $44 million. Was it $44 million? I think it was. Anyway, he's definitely driven down the value of the platform. He's restored Nazis to the platform, Nazi accounts, and was shown by Media Matters to have ads for respectable companies, IBM, Disney, etc., to run alongside pro-Nazi content. So here we go. We're going to listen to Musk make a fool of himself.
So I will certainly not pander. And Jonathan, like, the only reason I'm here is because you were a friend. Like, what was my speaking fee?
So you're not making any. First of all, I'm Andrew, but yeah, sorry, it's okay. Second of all, we've known each other for a very long time.
First of all, I'm Andrew.
And Jonathan, like, the only
Jonathan, oh, hilarious. And then language warning if we listen to Musk say what his response is to advertisers leaving his platform, leaving Twitter, or X as he likes to call it, because of the damage that he potentially does in terms of tarnishing their brand by running anti-Semitic material adjacent to their advertisements.
You know that there's a public perception that, and you're clarifying this now, but there's a public perception that was part of a apology tour, if you will, that this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself.
But
go fuck yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
That's Bob Iger from Disney. So that was Musk with a message to advertisers who haven't yet left the platform that he's hostile to advertisers. He has no intention of trying to be placatory, other than doing a tour of Israel with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli president, who's often referred to as the Trump of Israel because of being under investigation and under indictment for a lot of corruption charges. and has been accused, like George W. Bush was, of taking his eyes off the wheel, being consumed by his personal political problems, and ignoring the signs that there was an imminent attack from terrorists about to happen to the people of Israel. And so definitely I hold Hamas responsible for the attack, but I also hold Netanyahu responsible for diverting resources away from the border with Gaza and for willfully turning a blind eye to imminent threats. And I've got to go, but it was a delight to chat again. I loved seeing Bob and I liked seeing Eric. Thank you, Eric. Yes, Musk is so classy, and I hopefully will record again tomorrow. I miss broadcasting. It's so wonderful to be able to chat to like-minded people and to do my own bit. I've always said throwing a pebble in the pond of the information pond is what is incumbent on all decent people during a time of fascism, when the power of violence, the power and promise of contagious violence is something that can escalate in a way that seems inexplicable to some, but not to students of fascism and authoritarianism. So anybody who gets how dangerous Trump is and how dangerous the Republican Party that have persistently backed him are to the well-being of Americans collectively, it's incumbent on all of us to speak that truth out into the ether as best we can. I intend to come back. I watched the music you sent me, Bob, and it was beautiful. I cried as well. I'll play it next broadcast because, well, I'll think about playing it next broadcast. It was a beautifully executed bit of music from musicians all over the world. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye. Take